Hopefully it'll all go. Hello there. Good morning, Mike. How are you? Mike Smithson, Jungle Jim. Just noticed you taking the opportunity there of obviously famously of Property Jungle. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Thanks very much, Simon. Good to see you.
You're certainly looking good. Look, I'm in a bit of a glass house here, but some of our guests are a little bit too messy. But I like the look. I think you've got it going on there.
Thank you very much. The haircut though, I've actually got an appointment.
You have got appointments. Wow.
Yeah, for the 6th of July, so that'll be 4 months. But when it gets really, really messy, I've got my obvious Jungle Jim
like it
to keep it tidy and stuff.
I like it. It's very impressive. That's it. That's good. I haven't even thought about. I'm basically just working on the premise that the first couple of weeks they're going to be charging what they want to charge, aren't they? The hairdressers. They're going to make pretty much the last 3 months' revenues up in that first few weeks, aren't they? But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's pent-up demand, but it's not like you can have many haircuts to catch up the demand.
Although I certainly look like I could need it. Okay, Mike, let's kick off. Look, I mean, I think everyone knows you're synonymous, obviously, with websites and estate agencies for so many years now. Do you want to just give us a bit of background about yourself and the business, obviously, just so people that don't know what you're all about?
Yeah, no, I'd be delighted to. Yeah, much to my surprise, it turns out that I've been in the industry for 39 years.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody called me a stalwart recently, and I wasn't sure whether to be offended or complimented by that. But through my life, I've been an estate agent.
Yeah.
I've fought the battle at the front desk and done that, which obviously means I speak estate agent, and it makes it pretty easy for me to have conversations with agents. I also spent several years working in relocation, in part exchange, show home, leaseback stuff. I worked with Cartus in all, with all the names that they had for 14 years. Obviously, Cartus, the home of the relocation agents network, or wholesale network, as it was known.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah. I went solo with my own IT company in 1997. And we designed and built the wholesale network portal and the software to get the data backwards and forwards from desktop to portal. So probably the first portal in the UK, long before Rightmove was a twinkle in somebody's eye. Off the back of that, about 40 agents started to get in touch with me and asked, could we build them a website as well? And we sort of fell into building websites for agents.
Yeah.
The business that we had at that stage, we really wanted to build large database systems. So, for example, the piece of work that we did, we built the mortgage processing system for Abbey National Offshore. So that was a piece of work down in Gibraltar and Jersey and the Isle of Man, and bouncing data off satellites and stuff like that, as long ago as 97, 98. But I'd sort of kind of fallen in love with the internet and or World Wide Web, really.
Yeah.
1994 onwards. I've been a beta tester for AOL when we first came over. I was really a big fan of the potential for the internet and web-based applications to improve the performance of small businesses, not just big businesses. I want small businesses who didn't get it in inverted commas, didn't have the IT resources to be able to get the benefits from it, which is why we said yes to those 40 clients. I still had big global ambitions, though, and around about 1999, started the UK's first web chat company. I'd done a joint venture with an American corporation.
Yeah.
A company called NetBed over here. And in fact, some of the staff that we've got today are some of the staff that we had way back when. It was the very first people chatting to customers online back in 1999 and the year 2000. Unfortunately, our timing was a bit off, which you can imagine. So that was around about the dot-com bubble time.
Yeah.
So it was great technology, and I'm still a very firm believer in web chat. What you can do. You can't beat first-person customer service live when it's needed in the interface that the customer is most comfortable with. Absolutely a huge fan of it. But I was getting loads of great appointments. I remember presenting to the board of the NatWest, and you don't get that appointment very easy. can tell you. And at the end of it, the chairman goes to me, "That was fantastic, Mike. Let me know how you get on." It was just too early, like 17 years too early. And then a couple of years later, we had planes flying into Twin Towers, we had VC confidence disappeared, etc. So we got in a bit of a pickle, really. We hadn't sold enough, we hadn't made enough, and I had to figure out what to do to eat, basically.
Yeah.
And a really weird way, something odd had happened in the background. Also in 1999, two sandwich brothers, they had a sandwich shop in Woking. They were selling the shop. They came to me and said, "Could you build us what we now know of as a for sale by owner website, FSBO?" So we said, "Yeah, sure." So we built it, and it was great, really good. Except that they didn't make any money.
That might be a problem.
Yeah, they got about 100 listings over a year, which they had to give away. But there just wasn't enough traffic. There wasn't enough people willing to purchase. They sold absolutely nothing. Didn't make any money. So after a year, they came to me and said, "Mike, we're going to stop now. We're going to have to go and get a proper job. Do you want the company?" And I said, "Well, I don't really want the company. I do like the brand. It's called the Property Jungle."
Yeah.
So I paid them £1 for it. And we met in a hotel lobby where they gave me a plastic carry bag full of all the company papers and accounts and bank details and whatnot. I gave them £1, literally. Gave them £1. And I then took the site down, kept the name dormant. And when we reached the point where it was very obvious that NetRep wasn't going to work, I thought, well, now's the time to back my conviction and start building websites for estate agents properly. So we rebranded as the Property Jungle, and then I placed an advert in the Negotiator magazine.
Okay.
The phone rang. We sold 3 websites.
And it's as simple as that. Mike, sorry, we've got a few people just saying they can't hear you there. Have you got? Are you able to turn your mic up at all, or have you got any headphones?
Let's try this. Is it coming through here? Does that make it sound better?
That's better. Yeah, I can certainly see that.
Okay, let's put that on and see if that.
Oh, now he's going all Jerry Maguire on me.
Right, there we go.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Sorry.
Excellent. Good. Well, apologies. Yeah, I've got multiple microphones all over the place, and it just chose one. I assumed it was going to use the webcam one, so apologies for that, everybody.
Yeah. The clamouring crowds are saying that's much better, so that's great.
Yeah,
so
good.
Okay, so you put the advert up in the Negotiator. You instantly got 3 deals, and of course it's been plain sailing ever since. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we've sold over 2,100 sites since then.
I saw that on your site, and it takes a lot for me to be speechless, but I absolutely, that's incredible, isn't it? Over the years, I know you, as you said yourself, best part of 3 to 4 decades. It'll be interesting to know what those first websites look like compared to now. But I suppose that's a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. One of the things that impresses me the most about that number, I'm impressed by it, I'm staggered by it, and absolutely delighted by it. But some of the very first clients that we had back in 1997 are still with us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so and we've built like a 10th generation website for them.
Well, look, we're all about obviously transparency, and we're all about reviews, obviously on Kerfuffle. And I know that you've got some great names backing you, and Chris Holroyd's there gave you a 5-star, obviously review. You are 5-star review. So, do you want to talk through some of the clients that you actually got on board? I think you've got some really great agents, haven't you?
Yeah. We're quite an interesting company, because I know when you and I, our paths have crossed over the years. In your former days, you very much aimed for the top of the pyramid, the large companies, but it's a very flat pyramid. The estate agency world, there's not very many very big companies.
Just on that, the dynamic isn't it about 60% or 65% of agents are either 1, 2, or 3 office agents? I think it's as stark as that, isn't it?
Yeah. And somewhere in the 90% of all of our clients have got just 1 or 2 branches.
Yeah.
And we get a very large proportion of startups as well. Come to us.
That's such an. It's obvious, isn't it? When you start up, your essentials are essentially you got choose your portals, choose your website, choose your CRM, and that really obviously gets you off and out there, doesn't it? There, so
Yeah.
it strike me as being one of those just kind of must have stepping stones, really, isn't it? When you're building the business, what do we need to do? We need to get a website, and that's where obviously you've created a real niche for yourself, haven't you? But obviously a sizable niche.
Yes, no, absolutely. Excuse me, sorry. One of the things that gives me the greatest satisfaction actually is when we have the initial conversation with somebody who says, "I'm thinking of starting starting a business."
Yeah.
I've worked for a corporate for the last 10 years, and I want to put the money in my own pocket. Want to throw the doors open. I've only given myself 2 months. Can you help me? And being able to deliver something that immediately gets them up and running and generating income, and them staying with us, growing, coming back 2 years later, getting the next generation of website. Because in that first 2 years, they find out who they actually are. Yeah. Everybody who starts as a business has a dream. You have a picture, but your customers eventually tell you who you are and the services that you need to provide and what wins for you. So doing the next generation and building and growing on it is really exciting for me. I really absolutely love that. And we've got some great success stories out of it.
You were talking there about how long, obviously, the business has been going, and now, fantastically, some of those companies have obviously been with you for a long period of time. How, on average, how often do they have a complete refresh of the website?
Yeah, we have some clients that replace them fairly religiously every 2 or 3 years. We obviously have some clients that get around to it once every 10 or 11 years. I mean, the reality is that the technology that goes into every site is almost redundant after 12 months. Right. It moves so fast. Yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it?
There's very little code that we deploy now that we were using 12 months ago. It may still actually functionally deliver the same or similar thing, but the code behind it and the way and the widgets and the bits that go into it evolve at an alarming rate of knots. Designs and design styles evolve at a slightly slower pace. I think that's, you kind of get 2 or 3 years out of a design style, but that's again obviously influenced by the features that you can add as well. Yeah. That changes the interface and the customer journey.
So I'm guessing what do you recommend? Do you recommend to agents that they should have that, if you like, that complete overhaul every 2 or 3 years, or is there a new model in terms of just steady evolution, or because of that nature of the way that things do change so quickly, does it need to have that complete overhaul every 2 or 3 years?
It's worth having a look, not guaranteed to need throwing away and starting again. The driver behind it really is data. One of the, I suppose, little known facts, and we should do more about this, is that we actually look at data behind all of this. You've all heard, everybody's heard of Google Analytics and stuff like that. And obviously all of our competitors put Google Analytics into the websites where they can. We do as well, but we've actually got our own bespoke performance dashboard that goes with every website. And you need a degree to interpret Google Analytics, but we've done our dashboard in.
Is that what it's about then? It's really about, almost doing a sanity check and making that simple? Because you're right. I mean, I use it myself, but actually, whilst on the face of it, it's quite easy to get to the top level in information, traffic whatsoever there. I think it's the classic 80-20, except this way round, it's turned around. I don't really know what 80% of it does. And I'm sure there's some great gold dust in there.
Well, there's some very simple questions that we ask and display the answers to in the dashboard. The obvious one is it working? And if the definition of working for a client is getting me leads, which is kind of what everybody wants, we count the leads and we measure the performance of that. So you can, at any point in time, look up how many visitors do we have to get a valuation.
Yep.
And we measure that and make changes to see if we've improved it. So, and we've got some great results out of doing it over the years. One of our clients is a company called Putterals.
Great business. Yeah,
great business, absolutely superb. Yeah, and some experimentation that we did on their site was one of the things that we often find in the design stage is that a client wants everything to homogenize, blend in with their brand and their color schemes. But some parts of the site we think should stand out and not fit in with the color scheme. So we changed the valuation button.
Okay.
And we made it really stand out, not match with any of the color scheme or anything like that, and give it two options. You can have an instant valuation, ValPal, or an expert valuation. Someone's going to come round to your house. With the expert one, they need to fill in a form. So we did some gamification, by gamifying the form. So rather than having to scroll down, it's a detached, it's a semi, it's a terraced or whatever, you're just clicking on a picture of a detached or a semi. Make it really easy. That's really right thumb friendly. On a phone, it's a lot easier to just go house rather than trying to find it in a list.
Dare I say it's a bit Tinderish, isn't it? Which of course works particularly well.
Yeah, but it works. We've got to make these things mobile friendly, right thumb friendly, as I describe it. So in combination with doing all of those things, making the button stand out and finding the right color for the button, gamifying the form and simplifying it, and measuring the results, we were able to increase the valuation inquiries that Puttrell's got by 44% in 1 year.
Wow. I mean, that's that's like catnip to me, because that's actually one of the things I lament, and I was guilty of it myself. Was we always talk about ROI, but suppliers in general can be quite poor about actually demonstrating that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So. So you just disappeared off there. That's absolutely fantastic, and you're quite right. Leads has got to be one of the main KPIs, obviously, that defines success, doesn't it? At the end of the day, so without that, you're only doing yourself half the job, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So look, I mean, this is a key thing about what we're here today. The title of today is "Make Money and Save Money with Your Website and the 3 Key Pitfalls to Avoid." So look, we're already touching on some of these key angles here, Mike. But what is it, if you were just talk about it at its core? What is it that makes you and the property jungle different to obviously what is? There's a huge amount of website providers. Okay, I think it comes down to a niche when you're talking about a state agency website. But in the wider world, they're 10 a penny. So what is it that makes you, first of all, different to, if you like, the generic website provider, and then we'll come on and spend a bit of time about what makes you different to the other estate agency ones?
Sure. Well, the core difference, or the key difference between us and the generic, the guys who build websites for the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, is our expertise in property. Doing property data is not easy, and we regularly get phone calls from a local guy who's been knocking a website up in WordPress or whatever it might be for an agent, and then he gets stuck because he can't make the data come in from Repit or GPix or Desres or any of the other things. And that's like falling off a log for us. So that specialism helps, because it means that the answer is yes straight away. We don't have to go away and write a parser and figure out, we've made all the mistakes on all of that decades ago. Exactly. And the other really important thing is, being in the industry, we understand what the legislative requirements are of an agency website.
And that's absolutely critical, isn't it? I mean, that really...
Absolutely. I mean, the fines are penal. If you're not advertising your landlord's fees correctly, it's $5,000. Bang. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And most agents that we deal with don't even pay $5,000 for a website.
Yeah.
So to miss that off is just criminal. So staying close as we are to the industry, keeping our ear to the ground, understanding legal changes and environmental changes that affect that, allows us to communicate proactively with our clients and warn them, this is going to happen. Here's how we can solve the problem. Let's schedule you in and get you booked in. That makes a massive difference. And then where do we stand relative to our competitors? The answer to that, I think, lies in our focus. Our objective is to deliver the best results that we can for our clients for the least money. There are plenty of businesses, IT companies, and this is I suppose this is my hobby horse, I suppose, really. There are lots of IT companies that create smoke and mirrors, technobabble. the reality is, and I love this industry and I love estate agency, and that's why I've stuck at it for 39 years. Or as my dad says, I've never had a proper job. One of the two is true.
Still giving you that grief, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. But despite all the whiskers and proving I can eat myself, yeah. There's a sort of a mysticism, a magic that gets spun up by using technobabble that doesn't really warrant it. I'm afraid. A lot of what we do is it's a bit technically hard. Yeah. But we've got very clever people who can do it. And we absolutely obsess about process improvement. We're constantly challenging ourselves to find a better, cheaper, faster way of doing what we do so that we can deliver what we do for not much money. So we're at a stage now where we're delivering, for example, the templates for £500. But we've built.
I was going to ask you to be, more specific about that, because I understand obviously the sort of theory behind it. So, but you would say you look at each aspect of what you do. In this case, you were talking about templates, and you say this is the current way. Is there a way to do it better? Literally, and how often do you do that process?
Constantly. Okay. Constantly. Yeah, absolutely. We have a team of programmers who are constantly adding new features, replacing code, finding better ways of delivering it, making it faster, and delivering it in a way that our developers can then assemble the sites with pre-compiled objects. All they're doing is styling. They're the stuff that makes it work. We put the really hard engineering in to make sure that it just works. And the designers and developers can then assemble a site really quickly. I, as the owner of the business, I measure touch time and cycle time obsessively. I want us to be able to.
For those people who don't get that, could you just elaborate on what those are and why they're important?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example, just using American football, for example. That's probably the best way of describing it. An American football game has 60 minutes. So they will be touching the ball and throwing it around at each other and trying to score for 60 minutes. But they have lots of breaks in it when they're doing other stuff, changing teams, talking tactics, doing adverts, singing anthems, taking the knee, all that kind of stuff. And that builds it up to about 3.5 hours typically for a game. That's the cycle time.
Yeah.
So that's the amount of time you have to reserve for players to be in their kit and being available to do the touching and actually work on it. And I, as the owner of the business and trying to make a living out of this for everybody, I focus on how long it takes us to put a site in from the first time somebody says, yes, I'd like to go ahead, to us delivering it, and how much touch time it takes for our guys to be able to actually assemble them. Because the more we can do, obviously, the lower we can then bring our price down.
Yeah. You mentioned price a few times, haven't you? And I mean, I think it would be naive to say that obviously isn't a vital feature of of obviously all suppliers, but especially with websites, because I think it is fair to say, isn't it, Mike? You can get into silly money very quickly with some web providers, can't you? In terms of and I think there's a bit of a problem here. As watching it from the outside, it used to very much frustrate me. Because, we actually charged a premium, for Repit. But certainly in the early days, something as important as CRM software was really seen almost as an afterthought. Plenty of, the leading companies were only charging £100 per month for the CRM, which we like to think was the foundation of business. But you would and by the way, agents would kick off and moan about the price they were paying for that. But they would quite happily shout about from the hilltops about that they'd paid a 6-figure fee for a website, a 5 or 6 figure fee or something like that. It seemed to be almost like a sporting car analogy. Look how much I've spent on that. But do you think there's any reason to get into those figures? Is there a time and a place to have a really, really, marquee site?
There isn't a need to be charged that much. I'm aware. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to do that. But I'm aware of a very well-known brand that has been charged over £200,000 for a site.
Wow.
Which is, nobody needs to pay that for an estate agency website. And I understand absolutely that there's a lot of thinking gone into that, but it takes an awful long time for you to get a return on investment out of that. We've got a very, very simple philosophy here. We will only charge for the time it takes to do the job. We know that there are suppliers out there, however, will run the slide rule over the client or the prospect and work out what they think they can afford, and charge accordingly. And I have a problem with that.
There's a number of you. So you talk about you work on a value price proposition. Some people do competitor pricing. Literally, they look at what the competition's pricing. And what you're saying there is it's to take the piss pricing model, isn't it? Really,
there is.
How much can this person take? How much can this person take? And we will make it fit accordingly, won't they?
Yes, exactly. There's some interesting simple maths that you can do on all of this. We charge £500 for a template at the moment, and we've got the benefit of 2,100 sites worth of data, knowledge, and understanding of what we need to deploy in a template so that it will give a client that's got one the opportunity of getting some business and making some money.
Yeah.
And we measure that, and it works. Now, where you've got a call to action that says, for example, put me on, email alerts, put me on the mailing list, or come out and value my house, whatever the label on the button is, that's essentially what they're doing. This is where people are converting themselves from an anonymous surfer into somebody who they can do business with. That's our job, to create a journey through the site where somebody gets to that endpoint and they reveal who they are and a client can do something. The great unwashed, the public out there, despite what we see on the telly at weekends with statues and stuff, they're not entirely stupid. They will look at a button that says go on mailing list and know what it means. They will look at a button that says, excuse me, value my house, and know what it means.
What you're talking about, Mike, is that they're, as you said, they're wise to the call to actions. We think we're being very cunning in terms of nurturing these leads, these emails out of them as if they're just going to offer them up. But actually, there may have been a level of naivety about this a few years ago. But pretty much everybody knows what's going on these days, don't they?
People know how an estate agent website works. Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to train people how to buy something off Amazon. It's a very similar sort of thing. So, what we could do, and others do, is spin the whole thing up and say, well, we're going to have a working group that will analyze everything that we've done to absolutely 100% maximize the leads that you get out of this. It's all about lead generation, lead qualification, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Now, we're doing that by default anyway. So you've got a choice of paying 500 quid or £15,000. Now, we're only charging 3%. And we're probably getting 95% of the lead opportunities by default because we've put in place a good button that's easy to understand that everybody knows how to use.
Yeah.
What that means is that you could, if you want to, pay an extra 97% to get the remaining 5% of leads that we may or may not have got in there. I think that makes those the most expensive leads that you're going to get.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to justify the cost. We focus absolutely on the man hours it takes to do the work that we do. I don't care whether you make a £5 or 5 million out of the work that we do. If it only took us an hour to do it, we'll charge you for the hour. I think that's fair and transparent. And absolutely straight back and honest, and that's the sort of the value system that
but it sounds
we all operate.
Obvious, and yet it's refreshing to actually hear that you go for you're very forthright on that. In terms of those, we still need to of course try and nurture people for those call to action. What are some of the successful ways you see in terms of call to action sort of approaches?
Well, excuse me. The things that there's a design principle that we use, and there's actually a very good book about it as well. It's called "Don't Make Me Ask."
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Design should score 10 out of 10 for the bleeding obvious.
So this what we're talking about there is UI. Is you don't need a user manual. You should be able to go into whether it's a system or a website and instinctively know what to do. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, when somebody arrives on a website, you have to assault them immediately with something that is gorgeous, and then within a few seconds, the things that you want them to do should stand out on the page and be simple to use. And we've got some great people here who work through those user experiences and those user journeys. And it'd be worth pointing out actually how we go about evolving this with our clients.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Because we are not the local guy. We're actually everywhere. When I first started this company, I made a strategic decision to be everywhere. We don't have an office. We all already work from home. We've had a sort of an 18-year head start on everybody, so we've really got this, we've got this down pat. At the moment, you're talking to me in a purpose-built office at the bottom of my garden.
Yeah.
And we've got people scattered all over the country. There's 20 of us from as far afield as Northern Ireland. We've got somebody in Spain, all along the Thames Valley, Cornwall, Wales, everywhere. Okay.
And sorry, just on that, Mike, you were saying actually during this lockdown approach, you're actually selling double the amount of sites. So it's only because of that approach and that scalability and your particular, unique way of setting up that you're able to deliver on that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely. So we're about to be interrupted by a cat that does this every time. Excuse me, I'll just move it. There you go.
I was going to ask if that was your tail, but I thought
yeah. How excited I am at the question that you just asked me. So what we've done is we've really used technology to our advantage, so that geography is completely irrelevant. Okay, so obviously we can use Zoom and Skype and WhatsApp or Teams or anything to talk to any client that we want to, but we also need to get things to clients to help us go through the evolution of a website and the iterative processes. So we use something called UXPin at the design stage. Okay. So, excuse me, rather than send an email to a client, here's a JPEG, what do you think? We can display the visuals in a way that it would appear in a browser for a client. So they are looking at it in a browser on the screen. But the really beautiful thing with UXPin is they can then comment on it, on that JPEG, on that visual. And we can see that, we can comment back on it, we can evolve, we can show them version 2, version 3, version 4, evolve the visual through the customer journey that the client wants to have with the benefit of our advice, get to the calls to action part, where they're then happy with the process. So we're going from thinking through wireframe to illustration to correction, move that over here, and then we start cutting code. And once we start cutting code, we then use something called BugHerd, not Bugged, BugHerd, which is very similar in concept to what we've just gone through with UXPin, but it means that we can actually deliver the thing as a real functioning in construction website that they can look at in a browser on all devices and make the comments that they want and the corrections and the iterations in there, which automatically then goes onto a Kanban. So we've then got all of the to-dos that we need to do that we can then.
And for those people again, that don't know, Kanban is like the column reporting, isn't it? That shows you progress over time. Literally, you just move from one side across there. So very easy to visualize, isn't it?
Things to do, things being done, things I've done. You just move them from column to column to column.
I think it's a lovely approach, isn't it? Sometimes you can get lost in reporting, and that's a nice angle.
It is, yeah. So it makes it very easy for clients to interact with us, independent of their geography. And we have clients across Europe as well, in France and Spain, and even some down in Africa. And using that technology just takes geography out of it completely. But we can stay very close to them, and you don't end up with a long string of emails where they're saying, can you just do this? Can you just do that? Can you just, and so on and so on. It's all in one neat, tidy place. So you can track back through the evolution of it and get to the point where you sign off really very, very quickly. Light touch. Touch.
So I mean, you mentioned there about the importance of, converting those anonymous surfers into actual people you can do business. Yeah. What other ways are there that you can use your website to generate your money? I mean, obviously, this is important at any time, but never more so at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. A website isn't an agent's website isn't exclusively, or doesn't always have to be exclusively, about property transactions. Displaying properties and getting people through them. Conveyancing as a source of income, legal services, financial services, mortgages. We have partnerships and work with everybody that has those sorts of solutions that we can add and embed into websites. One of the things that we've noticed the real direction of travel on that we can help agents with is the growth of online auctions. Embedding auction feeds, live auction feeds from partners, people like Pattinson's Auctions, for example, gives agents the opportunity of earning additional revenue without having any additional cost.
I mean, that's an interesting area. We had Jamie on and the team from I Am Sold the other day, and there's SDL, as you mentioned, Pattinson's as well there. I think that's quite an exciting area, isn't it, for websites as well to generate. If ever there's a way of generating interest and excitement, an auction is certainly an angle to bring people to the site, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the direction of travel, the adoption and use of auctions as a way of selling properties rather than the traditional private treaty, we're going to get to a stage very quickly, I think, where every agent needs to have an auction capability in their tool bag.
Yeah.
We're getting to like 10% of all properties selling by auction.
That's right. And it's growing steadily. We spoke about it actually just the other day, how everyone was focused on that growth in the online agents and kind of missing that dynamic that actually auctions was pretty much matching it, and has continued its upward trajectory, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And I genuinely think it will continue. I don't know how high it'll get, but there's still some headway to go. But if I was an agent now and I knew that I stood a chance of losing out on perhaps 10% of all my possible instructions, I'd want to fix that. And there are solutions, and we can help them with those solutions. So, that's a part of what we see ourselves as being, bringing that sort of information and news to agents so they can make informed decisions about what they want to do, and then technically enabling it.
Yeah. And we mentioned Chris Holroyd earlier as well from Holroyd's. He's very big he's got a very successful financial services, hasn't he, as well? So you're able to support with the whole sort of mortgage side of things and conveyancing?
Yeah, let me explain a bit of a philosophy that I have about all of this. Okay, in the world of IT, when you want to do something, you can either build it, buy it, or borrow it.
Yeah.
We, the Property Jungle, need to focus on what our excellence is, what we're good at. We're really good at design, really good at building websites, really good at the data part, backwards and forwards, seeing the CRMs. Other people are equally competent and more so in their own spheres of excellence. So, for example, we are not going to build something that competes with the mortgage bureau. Absolutely not. We're not going to build something that competes with any of the CRMs either.
Why reinvent the wheel there? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So we will always work with and cooperate with all of the other prop tech companies that have got something that will add value to any and all of our clients, and help enable those as quickly, cost effectively as possible. And I'm always talking with companies with new ideas like that.
Yeah.
We've got projects working.
I was just going to say that's going to be very, a lot of agents are going to welcome that, because, of course, again, the frustration is that there is so many suppliers, especially the tech suppliers, that seemingly just don't talk to each other, don't integrate, or indeed even have that open view. So I know previously you've always had that very open approach, which is great.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So we've got a question here just from Fam, who's just saying, do you think estate agents rely on leads from property portals more than focusing getting leads from their own website?
It's a very good question. And it depends on the lead is the answer to the question. Punters go to Rightmove and the portals and so on. Obviously they do. That's where the biggest trough of stuff to graze in absolutely is. But a significant proportion of buyers are also sellers. And the thing about an agent's website is it's where people go to kick the tires. 100 years ago, when I was an estate agent, people came into the office and we used to show them black and white maps of High Wycombe and then get the highlighter pens out and show them where the school catchment areas were and all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, prospective vendors and landlords go to an agent's website to kick the tires there. And they're just looking to ask some simple questions, answer some simple questions. Is this a journey that I would enjoy if I was a buyer myself? In other words, would it be easy to find my house? Have they sold anything like my house? Are they in my area? Excuse me, sorry. And what we try and do is embellish that process as much as we can. So, I mean, this is the sort of, I suppose you would describe it as the disingenuous part of an estate agency website. We try and make it really good for a buyer's experience in the knowledge that we will never sell a house off that website, but we're going to impress the pants off every future vendor and landlord.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. So you'll get traffic to the site from the portals and all the other social media things that you do to try and get traffic to it. But we're always on the lookout for the next vendor and landlord by giving them a great experience as if they were a buyer or a tenant, and having appropriate calls to action along the journey. If you've got a house to sell, here's your instant valuation or your expert valuation.
I'm just going to actually just add David in, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Hello, David.
He's just got a question, actually. He just put a question up, but I'll let you actually. We've got him here in action. So he was just going to say, is there any other equivalent of a Facebook pixel for other platforms that can fit on your homepage, or has this not reached other platforms? David, is that something you've been looking at then yourself?
Yeah, well, I think we probably came across the Facebook pixel. I think we were working with Paul Long a couple of years ago, and it's amazing how many agents aren't still don't know about it. But tremendous amount of businesses. I mean, the property industry tends to be quite clued up when it comes to websites. But if you were to look at other industries, it's amazing when I talk to other retailers locally. None of them seem to know about the Facebook pixel. None of them seem to know that you can retarget traffic, which is, let's face it, it's warm and it's friendly because they've already come to your website initially to check you out. So nobody has stumbled across it by mistake. Everybody's come there on purpose. But so obviously Facebook enable you to, I suppose, weaponize that and to retarget those visitors. But are there other, I mean, are we missing a trick? Are there other platforms out there that do something similar?
A big shout out to James there, by the way. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Giving you a very good shout out there. Thanks for that, James.
That's another bottle of wine I owe him. David, the only other thing I'm aware of is Google. Google have a very useful remarketing thing that you can do. It works in principle exactly the same. You've been to the agent site. Next time you go to Google, you will see the agent's advert. I'm not aware. Others in my team may be aware, but I don't think there's anything specific, for example, for Twitter or any of the others,
or LinkedIn or anything else like that.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
But I mean, those are the funny enough, we're talking to the property jungle. Those are the big gorillas anyway, aren't they? I mean, they're genuinely they're so dominated that it's unsurprising that there's there probably are niche tools and indeed platforms, but for the moment, it's really you're going to get best bang for your buck focusing on those, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's a good job we got David join us here because he loves to save money, my friend, Mr. Mintz. So, I mean, we were going to ask you next. Obviously, we spoke about a number of different ways that Property Jungle via the website can obviously help you make money. On the flip side there, Mike, how can you help agents save money?
Excuse me, sorry, I do apologize. We focus on process improvement. That's my background, really: process analysis, process improvement, etc. Doing more things with less money. And one of the big ones at the moment, and that answers a question that Emmeline was asking: what are the best plugins for agency websites at the moment? I think one of the most important process improvements at the moment is virtual viewings with 360-degree tours and dolls houses and the interactive nature of those. We are the UK representatives of ImmoViewer, who provide a competitive product to Matterport, considerably cheaper.
James has got a question.
That's another bottle of wine right there.
Yeah, I know. Well, James is actually
a case.
Yeah, James is actually a user of ImmoViewer, which he bought through us, and I think the thing that's really, I mean, obviously, notwithstanding the COVID and infection and all those sorts of implications, we've got clients that have been using it very successfully prior to the pandemic as a way of, as I said before, doing more with less.
Yeah.
These tours are a fantastic way of showing a lot of people a lot of property without anybody getting in the car, without vendors having to put the Lego in the oven. You know, and keeping people using their time smarter. So, you know,
and not least that, Mike, you know, 24/7, 365 a year, isn't it? It's always there, always available, and you can't discount that out of normal office hours audience, can you? It's staggering how many people get to your site and you know, really spend a lot of time on it at those outside of hours.
So, Mike, when you look at sort of any kind of video file, but particularly these virtual tours, the data can be quite hefty, can't it? So does that sit on a separate server with ImoViewer in the same way that Matterport needs its own platform?
Yes, it does, yeah. I mean, the tours only work because there is software involved. So they're selling it as a software as a service solution. So you as the agent or through a third party like Vuber, for example, who use this technology, can go out, take the photographs. It's the ImoViewer software that then creates the tour. In other words, connecting the photographs, connecting the floor plan, connecting the doll's house all together. And they store the data. So it shows you there we go.
That's incredible,
yeah, that is an incredible statistic there.
Yeah. Yeah, and James, who popped up earlier on, has got a couple of my absolute favourite stories of using this technology. He had a squatty in Afghanistan, wanted to live in a particular street, couldn't get back. James told him he'd got one, sent him the virtual tour. The guy went, you know, the squatty in his barracks went round the property, confirmed, yeah, that's the one he wants, and bought it. He's got another one which is even more, I think, astonishing and a real validation of all of this. Good old Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Michelle is a big fan of yours.
Oh, bless her. And we're a big fan of her as well. I love her very much.
It's a mutual loving. There you are.
What James experienced with this particular couple was that on the day the viewing was supposed to happen, the wife was very ill and bedridden. So the chap went to the house, and the husband went to the house, and on his mobile phone, talking to his wife, walking around it while she was virtually walking around it at exactly the same time. So they still viewed the house together, were able to ask and get answers to all the questions that they wanted to, and then actually ended up buying the house. I think James said it was about $5,500 over the asking price he got from that. Holden Copley, one of our great success stories, who were a startup when we met them, when we first started building with them, built several generations of site for them. They're now a multi-branch business listing hundreds of houses a month. They are huge fans of this ImoViewer technology because it helps them win instructions. When you're sitting down with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or remotely with Mr. and Mrs. Smith now, and saying, we can display your house like this, and we can, there you go, 5,000 more from James. Yeah, you can. We can display your house like this, and we can show people around your house like this. Vendors love the fact that you're using modern technology to keep them safe, to minimize their inconvenience and disruption, but maximize the opportunity of getting buyers to complete on it. It's a technology that's absolutely come of age.
I was going to say, so James actually had another question there that ties into this as well, I think. You know, do you think the enthusiasm for the hybrid model is the way forwards? I'm guessing, you know, tools like Matterport, ImoViewer would suggest that is the way. What's your opinion on that, though? I mean, to me, it just feels like everyone's going hybrid. You know, the online agents, which let's just say they have failed in their first iteration, are going to have to layer in more service. So they're hybridizing, if that is a word, one way. And of course, we've seen iteratively over time, traditional estate agents started to, you know, really embrace it very positively. A lot of technology and online tools that obviously were previously just the domain of the onlines. So do you think that's a trend that's going to continue?
Yeah, there's a phrase that I use an awful lot, which is that people will buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So I don't think you can completely get rid of the high street, get rid of the agent, do it from your back bedroom or anything like that. You still have to kiss the client and deliver good service. And
or socially distancing.
Well, yes, absolutely, yeah. A remote snog, yeah. But customer service and the ability to deliver it and guide and help and support people through what is an arcane system that we've got is just so vital. I go back to the very beginning when I was describing that. We bought the brand The Property Jungle from a client who was trying to do a for sale by owner site.
Yeah.
Since then, we've built about a dozen for sale by owner sites. Let the punter do all of the work. Not one of them is in business today. No. we actually turn them away now because I feel embarrassed taking their money, knowing that it's just not going to work.
Yeah, but the other point is, a dozen over 40 years is not a very big demographic either, is it? Realistically,
no, it's not. No, I mean, there's a handful of them have sort of carved themselves a living, but it's still a very small percentage of all transactions are private sales.
It strikes me really that the online agents and the for sale by owner, they're the same market realistically, aren't they? They tread on each other. It's that kind of vendor that thinks that all agents don't do anything, that will go down those routes anyway.
Well, Purple Bricks initially started by trying to not have any customer service. I've been to their head office. They have an awful lot of people there doing after-sales service and negotiating and contract chasing and all the things that everybody accuses them of not doing. They do actually do it. They may not do it very well, but they do it. But their financial footprint has had to grow significantly in order to provide more customer service. It's not going away. It will always be there.
So I think you'll probably find that the hybrid model will just compensate in terms of fees. So fees will get better because service has to get better, and the service element is what costs. Yes. And so really the customer wins again because they get the efficiencies of a hybrid model, but they're also going to be getting traditional, I suppose, enthusiasm, hands-on estate agency.
Absolutely. You need somebody who knows what's happening to explain what's happening. And that's what a good estate agent does. That's the value that they add, and to help you move. People often lose sight of what an estate agency is about. It's not about selling houses. It's about moving people.
Yeah. We've got a good estate agent with us now. See, I like to blow a little bit of smoke with David there. David, have you got your notepad ready? Because Mike is now going to tell us the 3 key pitfalls to avoid when choosing. I assume it's when choosing a website. It's not just live. You're giving us live lessons here, right?
Well, making it up as I go along.
We've been doing that for a while.
Actually, Mike, maybe this is sort of a sub question to Simon's question. When you hit somebody's webpage, whether that be on a mobile version or it's on desktop, you only get to see a certain section of it, don't you? The first bit that hits you is the top part of it. What should people be seeing there? Is it a property search section? Is it about you? Is it reviews? What, in your opinion, is the first thing that should welcome a visitor to your website?
The next step. Short answer, the next step. So a site is designed to fulfill an objective. We talk about customer journeys and endpoints and things like that. So each site is slightly different. Each agent has slightly different motivations. The common ones are obviously to get people to see properties quickly, in the hope that you will then get some conversion of people who are anonymous surfers into people that you can do business with. So the search above the fold is a very good thing to do for those. It's the phrase you're looking for there is above the fold, the bit that you see first. Yeah. So enabling the next step. There's a phrase that we use. It's one more step. No, sorry, one more click. I do apologize. One more click. That's what we're always trying to do. We want the person to engage with the site, stay on it, click one more time, and stay on, and eventually get to not eventually, as quickly as possible, get to the calls to action where they reveal who they are.
So that's a balancing act then between basically what we're talking about here is there's that phrase, the bounce rate. We're trying to stop the bounce rate, which is where people come to the site, don't see what they want, don't get it quickly enough, and then they disappear off, don't they? And
They do,
everything you should be trying to do is reducing that. And as you said, it's a balancing act between, you can't just shove the call to actions too obviously, can you, a lot of the time, because people do need to feel a little bit sort of
well, they need to go on the journey that they want to go on.
Yeah. But that's the balancing act, isn't it? And that's where they need people like you, is to say, this is the right place to do that, this is the information we need to give them so that they feel comfortable offering up their private information.
Absolutely. And David, the fuller answer to your question is actually the whole content on the page is very important in itself, because there are two audiences for a website. There's the human audience, and you've got to give them the gorgeous first impression and the obvious next step that they should take. But you've also got search engine spiders. So you have to have on the page something that confirms exactly who they are, what they do, where they do it, and have all your keywords organized and phrases in the way that you want to be found. And the spider doesn't know that this is really above or below the fold. Well, technically it does, but it's looking for all of the content and all of the links to see.
So given that I'm presuming one of your sort of main goals as a designer of websites is to make the customer experience so welcoming that they don't initially want to just run away and forget that they were using this site. A lot of agents these days, they have they either have pop-ups or they have a little sort of chat pop-up that comes up in the corner of the website almost immediately as soon as you hit their homepage. They're asking you if they can help you, if you need anything particular. Is that helpful or unhelpful? Do you think it's welcoming, or do you think it's likely to push people away?
Well, I as I said right at the very outset of all of this, I'm a huge fan of web chat.
Right.
I brought the very first web chat technology to the UK in 1999. So my answer has to be I'm a fan, but it has to be done correctly. I mean, the thing with web chat is doing it badly is worse than not having it at all.
Yeah, that's definitely
we have it on our own website. And
do you bring that in from the get-go, or does that sort of come in after a number of
10 seconds?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, people will, if you think about your own experience when you're viewing websites, within the first 8 seconds or so, you've probably interpreted, I'm in the right place, on the right site, and I've figured out what to do next. Yeah. So we let you do that with us, with that 10-second gap.
Yeah.
In that same period of time, if it's the wrong site, you'll have gone somewhere else. So we haven't wasted the person who's manning the website's time trying to engage with you. Okay. I understand the question. The underlying question is, I've seen them used really badly. They can be exceptionally intrusive if they're used badly. But the worst one is where you engage with somebody and then they're clearly talking to somebody else or gone on a coffee break or something like that.
It's that balance. It's like when you walk into a shop and somebody rushes up to you and goes, "Oh, can I help you? Are you looking for something?" And sometimes all you want to do is browse and be given that space. So I think you need to get that timing right.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got some interesting experiences, anecdotal evidence of all of this from previous experiences. We sold web chat when I had the NetRep business to the Woolwich, and they would do some really big adverts in the Sunday colour supplements and things for the mortgage products that they had. And they actually manned their website on Sunday evenings because the traffic spiked, because people had spent the day reading the colour supplements and the magazines, whatnot, and then they'd start browsing the website in the evening. And they then gently, proactively engaged those people with qualified own personal staff using the tool, and generated tens of thousands of pounds worth of leads, out of all of those. Worked an absolute treat. The inverse to all of that was when back in 1999, installed it on an agent's website, showed them how to use it, how to engage somebody on there. So you've got the negotiator with all of the product knowledge, knows all of the stock, sitting on the site. Somebody comes on, they engage them, they have a chat, and they're busy typing away, thinking, "Oh, this is going great." And then somebody walks in through the front door. You can't ignore the person that's just walked in through the front door, and you can't say, "Wait, just bear with me. I'm just going to finish my web chat with this person. So people like Moneypenny and Yomdell, who outsource that conversation, they're absolutely worth their weight in gold, because it allows the agent to do what they need to do in the office, talk to people, be in, be out, make phone calls, etc. And they act as a really good first customer kiss and then a filter.
Yeah.
So you're arriving with a good lead, and that's exactly how we use them. From time to time in our business, we do man it ourselves. Sharon will sit there and have useful conversations, but most of the time on our website, you'll be talking to somebody from Moneypenny, and they arrive with us as a qualified lead within minutes.
Yeah.
So they're really valuable tools.
What are the pitfalls are there then, Mike?
What are the pitfalls? One of the things that we find the most common mistake is made is an agent has gone with, I call him the local guy. Excuse me. This is the guy who probably does your brochures or leaflets or flyers or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's taught himself WordPress over the weekend. And then he'll come round and say, I figured out, look, I can do something really shiny for you, and I'm only going to charge you a couple £100. Yeah. And the agent's sitting there going, well, I've got something shiny for only a couple £100. Agents, and I mean this in the most respectful way that I can, generally speaking, are not good at IT, and certainly not good at buying IT. They don't understand how to assess and evaluate what we call the total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
And the total cost of ownership with a very cheap site from the local guy is probably the most expensive site you're ever going to buy, because he'll get stuck. He may eventually figure out how to write a parser for example, the Repit API feed or something like that, and then the agent changes and goes to Desres, and then they've got to do it all over again, and he doesn't know how to do that, or he's left, or he's got a bigger project from somebody else, and he was only ever doing it just to make some short-term cash flow. He's not in the industry, so he's not going to develop new features and products and services that are going to help an agent.
I can totally jump on board with that. Look, I know from my experience when obviously it was a CRM in the CRM space and talking to other CRM providers, the thing that would quite often scupper a project was when that local guy dynamic came into play, and they wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo about the feed structure. Often the cost would either be beholden on us, the CRM company, to undertake to make it happen, or inevitably that local guy would go back to the agent, and it would just be a continual upsell in terms of, oh, if I need to do this, it's XYZ amount of money. So I can see that one.
So it's a false economy at that level. But the other pain that we've seen inflicted on agents through this is the local guy, being not in the industry, doesn't understand the legislation that an agent has to comply with on their website. It's nowhere near the same as a website for the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker that the local guy has helped before. They've got a lot of things that they have to get right, and the fines are huge. And we have agents that have come back to us and said, right, I've just paid off my 3 lots of £5,000 fines to trading standards. Can you help me with a site that complies, please? So lesson number 1, the local guy, be very, very circumspect. A shiny picture doesn't tell you the total cost of ownership.
And in the chart,
number 2, templates that can't be customized.
Okay.
That's a really big problem for an awful lot of agents, or that they can be customized, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to do it. And I've had loads of people over the years say, I've been told by my current web developer that it's going to cost £300 to change the phone number, and it'll be in 2 weeks before they can get around to doing it.
Yeah.
Something, and I would like to. So my advice to agents who are talking to us, a potential web supplier, about buying a template is to examine in great detail what can and can't be changed, what it will cost to change it, and how quickly it can be changed. Because making changes to websites is absolutely vital. And this, I think, is a very important philosophical point to make, as well as I can tell you how we cover all of this. There are an awful lot of people who build websites that think that the end of the project is when it goes live.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. Here's your bill. I'm off.
Yeah.
It's not. That's day 1. That is day 1 of the website. And we have to keep making changes to it, partly to comply with legal changes, but partly to comply with feed changes, with competitive changes, the evolution of the business, opening new offices and so on. So what we build has to be built with maintenance in mind. Yeah. So we have a dedicated full-time maintenance team, a team of people who don't build websites. Their reason for being on the planet is to make changes to websites that clients want. And over the years, we've won a lot of clients because they've come to us and they said, my existing incumbent is getting in the way of me growing my business.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we've evolved a maintenance team, as I say, and a set of maintenance processes, all with the intention of being able to allow the site to evolve rapidly at a client's pace. Every site comes with a content management system, so they can make changes themselves. But equally, some changes are harder than an agent would want to do, or they value their time differently and they just want to go out and be doing vals and viewings and all that kind of stuff, and they'd rather just use us. So there's two ways they can use us. We can either go on what we call a pay-as-you-go basis. So send us the request, we'll give you a quote. If you like it, we'll do the work, send you a bill. Or we've got what we call the Can You Just maintenance plan. Because an awful lot of requests for small changes come in, starting with an email saying, can you just do this? Can you just do that? So we've got the Can You Just maintenance plan. And that just costs £20 a month.
Okay.
So I've got a builder that specialises in whilst you're here jobs. So you get them around for something else. You say, whilst you're here, can you just look at this? And can you just look at
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's about 40% of our clients actually use the.
Well, I mean, at that price point, why would you not really? To be honest, I mean, it makes.
Yeah, and it's. Do you remember I was saying earlier on about process efficiency? I mean, clearly we don't make a lot of money at £20. You know, again, it's not feeding into the retirement plan, but what it does do is it.
Can I just suggest, surely that's just about a satisfaction issue, though, isn't it? I mean, that's going to stop that. You know, the thing that I know clients and agents in particular don't like is where, you know, you keep coming back to them with a you know, a bill for a little bit of a iterative change. So actually being very honest and setting the expectation that you're going to have these issues. So this is how we will actually deal with that is going to be the best way of coping, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a very efficient way of working for us. We don't have to prepare a quote. We don't have to prepare an invoice. We don't have all the correspondence that goes with booking in. It keeps our costs down, which in turn we can feed back to our clients.
Surely there's got to be a limit on the sort of work that can be involved in that.
Yeah, I'm not going to build you a new site for 20 quid. Yeah, absolutely.
There you are, David.
It's time for me to log out now, I think. That's my budget spent.
Yeah, the vast majority of changes that clients want are what they would euphemistically call a tweak. So, you know, rearranging stuff on a page, sometimes a new page. If it's getting to the point where we're looking at a restructural part of thing, a piece of work like a completely new menu or something like that, that would step outside that, because if you're essentially going to need to lock somebody in a darkened room in an understairs cupboard or wherever for 2 or 3 days to do something, that needs properly projecting, and so we would do that separately. But all the everyday low-hanging fruit little things that a client will ever want is covered in the Can You Just plan. You know, and we're not looking to make money on it. We're not looking to lose money on it. We probably do lose money on it, but you know, it's all about the long-term value of a client, and that's why we do it. Keeping them happy.
I'm assuming that's why you've got 5-star reviews on the site. And take us in at number one, Mike. Then, what's the number one key pitfall to avoid?
The lock-in. It's the one thing that really bugs me slightly. We have conversations with clients saying, you've got exactly what I want, or with agents, sorry, you've got exactly what I want, but I can't come to you for another 18 months because I'm signed up to a 2-year contract. Yeah. That 2-year contract doesn't benefit anybody other than the web developer. It makes their company more sellable. I mean, Simon, you understand from your history in Reapit why you do it, but it doesn't benefit the agent.
Well, on that note, Mike, you might have already mentioned this, and forgive me if I missed it, but how often do you feel an average client should be changing their website?
Yeah, you did miss it.
I'll catch it on the match of the day highlights later.
Yeah, design styles tend to have a shelf life of about 2 to 3 years. Technology has a shelf life of only 1 year, generally speaking. So if you're using, but it doesn't become non-functional. It just means that there's a better way of doing it. So if you were to look at refreshing your site every 2 to 3 years, that sort of window, that would be good. But don't come at it from the perspective of I've got to throw it away and start again. Come at it from a data perspective and understand what's working. Out of the volume of visitors that you've got, how many are you converting? What do you think you could do to the design, the structure, the customer journey to increase that, which may necessitate or result in a new site. It's not mandatory. Absolutely not. The golden rule is it has to work for you.
So it's not like a sort of a wholesale rebranding exercise where you throw the baby out with the bathwater and kind of start again.
No, absolutely not necessary. No, it's an option. Absolutely. And hey, I make a living out of building websites. So if that turned out to be the answer every time, that'd be great. But I'd much rather just be honest with people and say, well, we can get another couple of years out of this if we just make this change. Let's measure the difference and see if we can do that.
So, sorry, Mike, just to be clear about that point then in terms of the lock-in. So you don't operate on a contract at all then? There's no contractual basis?
For the first 16 years of our life, we had no contract at all. Then GDPR came along, and it just made sense, unfortunately, because of those obligations that we had, that we need to have a contract with our clients on that. But we've gone for the short, and a contract has to have a period, has to have a time period. So we've gone for the shortest period that we can, 30 days.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Got a very simple. I've got a very simple principle, really, which is if we haven't made you love us enough to stay, you should go. You should be free to go.
I'm the same with partners.
I was going to say I tried that with my wife and it's not worked. In terms of data ownership, though, Mike. So if I said, look, I was leaving you in 30 days' time. Do I get to take all my stuff, or is that yours?
Stuff? Yeah, well, all your data is yours anyway. We only get the data from the CRM system. But yeah, you can have the site too. The engine, the database that sits inside of it, that does all of the content management system and the stats and the property data, that's ours. But the data is yours. And what you're doing is you're licensing our database for the duration of the relationship that we've got.
But that's an amazing offer there as well, Mike. What you're talking about there is as well the look and feel of it, so that people can do what I think we used to term it a lift and shift. Yes, if you needed to have it, not only is that data your own, but actually, if they for whatever reason they weren't, they can actually take that look at there. But of course, the key thing is all the stuff that drives it is yours. It's proprietary. And
I wouldn't want you to think that you literally could just lift and shift and it will just work straight out of the box. You're going to need.
You can't have something for nothing, can you? You can't leave.
You're going to need somebody with a bag of spanners to be able to, fire it up again. And put a new engine with a parser to the CRM system into it. But the design's yours. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And I'm sorry, I'm just conscious of time. I didn't even notice we've gone well over the hour now. But but obviously people are liking what you're saying. We've got Gareth, if you're still out there, he says he'd like to speak about a website today, please. So that's
love to have that conversation.
You've been really, really good and kind enough to offer actually our Kerfuffle members a deal here today, haven't we? Which is up on the landing page. And basically that's to say that anyone referred from Kerfuffle will get 3 months license free. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. Very happy to help all your customers.
That's, I mean, look, I said it off air before you came on board, didn't I? If you went into lockdown not liking your website, you won't have enjoyed that time in there, will you? The only place people can see you. So I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of people very interested in actually, refreshing or having that whole overhaul that you were talking about earlier. So that's fantastic. So encourage anybody either watching it now live, obviously on recording, go to the landing page on Kerfuffle, look for Property Jungle with its fantastic helmet, and you can just click on the I'm interested button and it'll go straight through to you. So that's fantastic.
Brilliant.
Let's just finish on this. I think we've touched on elements of this, but Rob did just say you think the agency needs to have bespoke websites such as yours instead of these off-the-shelf templates to make them unique instead of looking like the same as everyone else. Especially if people are browsing different agents' websites, which can look the same in layout. How do you stop? Obviously, because if you are doing template, how do you stop them becoming too me too and like the other ones? How do you still help them stand out from the crowd?
Well, let me just start by saying that one of the things that's a key feature of an awful lot of the conversations that we have with people is they'll ring in and they'll say, I'm starting up, I want to be completely different. Could you build me a site like Joe Blogs, please? So there's an awful lot of that happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. Isn't it normal people say, can I just have the site just like Foxton?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, put my logo on that, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rightmove. We've had an awful lot of requests over the years to build Rightmove. Yeah, absolutely. Because we've got that in packet form, oven ready. But the answer, going back to the bespoke, the value that you get out of a bespoke is in the unique portrayal of your brand and the portrayal of the USPs that you have as a business. Those are the key and most important things. Theoretically, no two agents are the same. Clearly, they will do a lot of very similar things, but being able to portray your differences and your different customer journey is very, very important. I'll give you a good example of that. There's a client that we've got called Where We Belong. We saw him earlier on, James White. His site is very bespoke, but he's got a very bespoke boutique experience for his customers, and you get that sense and that feeling of what it will be like to be a customer of theirs because of the design and the way that it's been portrayed. So there is absolutely a place for a bespoke site, particularly when you are a bespoke business and not one of the common herd.
Yeah. So matching the website to the culture of the company, what it's doing is just part of that 40 years worth of experience that you've got, obviously.
Yeah.
And you don't look a day over 30, mate. You don't look a day over 30.
Thank you very much. I did when I first woke up.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for that. Gareth, if you'd like to get in touch with Mike, either via the website or obviously direct, Mike will be obviously very keen to have a chat there. Thanks very much, Mike. I obviously know a lot more about the site, even though I've obviously known about you over the years. You're a mainstay of the industry, and I'm sure you're going to be here for many years to come. So to 4 more decades, my friend.
God. My dad will be so proud. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, okay. Thanks to everyone who's been watching. David, thank you very much. Mike,
thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.